They actually released this bonus clip on Twitter last night, poking fun at DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's past puppy killing scandal.
The latest episode hitting a nerve, prompting Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to publicly respond to South Park's unflattering portrayal of her. Here she is with Glenn Beck.
Probably also not going to be happy with this other bit, this extended clip that South Park posted to social media.
Kristi Noem took a hard blow from South Park, especially with the brutal extra scene. She called it lazy and cruel, but all that did was drag one of her biggest past scandals back into the spotlight. The irony is that while she's fuming, South Park is thriving, and that extra scene is quickly turning into a viral meme online.
Reference to something that Noem admitted in a book that she wrote in her memoir, talking about how she had to shoot and kill her puppy named Cricket because she says it was untrainable, so South Park took on that as well.
South Park didn't just add a lighthearted extra scene, they dropped it with impact. This wasn't a small gag people could overlook, it was a full-on mockery packaged as bonus content. The creators made it clear that Kristi Noem's tough cowgirl persona was fair game, and they tore it apart without holding back.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is responding to criticism after admitting to shooting and killing her young, happy, jubilant, joyful puppy, and then deciding to kill a goat after that with her gun.
And they're bragging about it.
Her polished public image wasn't only hurt, it turned into a punchline. Rather than sidestepping her history, South Park dragged her most embarrassing mistakes right back into the spotlight. And the way they did it was brutal. It was blunt, unfiltered, and impossible to miss. It was sharp humor designed to hit hard and spread fast across the internet.
South Park is known for its edgy humor, and in its latest episode, they've targeted a satirical eye on Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
The worst part is, they didn't just mock her, they brought her past mistakes back into the spotlight. South Park basically said, you thought people forgot? They didn't. It wasn't only a joke, it was like tearing down her reputation in front of everyone while turning it into memes online.
It's so lazy to just constantly make fun of women for how they look. If they wanted to criticize my job, go ahead and do that, but clearly they can't. They just pick something petty like that.
What bothers me is that Kristi Noem could have just ignored the joke and looked unbothered. Instead, she chose the worst response when it comes to South Park. She took the bait. Rather than brushing it off like a seasoned politician, she released a statement calling the joke lazy and childish. And really, nothing makes it clearer that you're upset than publicly complaining about a cartoon.
But we could use more men like you in the street work on this track.
Whoa! What the
Your Botox, Miss Noem?
Oh yeah, fix me up, fix me up.
Another day doing what's top.
That face melting, at one point it even just comes off and runs away.
The surprising part is that out of everything South Park joked about, her role as a leader, her mistakes, even the big law she pushed to protect the country, she chose to fixate on just one thing, the melting cartoon face. That's what actually bothered her. It wasn't the political jabs, the reminders of her past, or even the silly ice show parody. She decided to make an issue out of the melting face. For someone who tries to project toughness, that reaction showed the opposite. It made her look thin-skinned, like she couldn't handle criticism, and turned something small into something bigger. In the end, it came across as weak, overblown, and honestly a little sad.
Kristi Noem not happy about it. She's calling out the creators of South Park, saying it is lazy to just constantly make fun of women for how they look.
Then she argued that the show was unfair to her because she's a woman. That was a mistake. South Park targets everyone, no matter their background. If you're in the spotlight, you're going to be mocked. That's the whole point. Nobody is off limits. So saying it happened because she's a woman didn't land, and it only made her look out of touch. By reacting, instead of brushing it off, she actually made the joke louder and basically admitted, yes, that bothered me. And that's the part that ends up being funny.
At one point it even just comes off and runs away. Kristi Noem not happy about it. She's calling out the creators of South Park, saying it is lazy to just constantly make fun of women for how they look.
JD Vance was mocked in the same episode, but he chose a different approach. Rather than complaining, he turned it into a win. He didn't get angry, put out statements, or show frustration. Instead, he went online and proudly said, "I've finally arrived." To him, being targeted by South Park was a sign that he had become a major figure in politics.
Extended clip that South Park posted to social media.
And to be fair, that strategy actually worked. While Kristi Noem was caught up in frustration over how she was portrayed in a cartoon, JD Vance came across as someone who handled the situation with far more composure. He didn't lash out or feed the show more material they could twist back on him. Instead, he managed to flip the moment into a kind of self-promotion, showing that he could take the joke without letting it get under his skin. By doing that, he didn't just avoid embarrassment. He came across as sharper and more in control. Simply by laughing at himself, Vance gave off the impression of someone who was comfortable with criticism. And in the world of politics, that makes a big difference in how people see you. Here's the simple truth that stands out. Politicians are used to complaints, debates, and even scandals. They know how to respond to those. But what they can't manage is laughter, because laughter sticks. Once the public starts to view you as a punchline, once your name brings up an image of mockery, that's a stain on your reputation you can't wash away. You can argue back against criticism, but you can't convince people to stop laughing, and when you've become the joke, that image follows you everywhere.
It is a reference to something that Noem admitted in a book that she wrote, in her memoir, talking about how she had to shoot and kill her puppy named Cricket because she says it was untrainable. So South Park took on that as well. We will see if they go after anybody else.
That's why South Park is more powerful than news or political arguments. Politicians want to be respected, obeyed, and feared, not laughed at. When a cartoon makes fun of you and shows you as silly, your strong leader look is ruined. People then see you as a joke, not as someone powerful. That's why Kristi Noem couldn't deal with it. The funny thing is, each time a politician gets upset about South Park, the show becomes more popular. If you want to see more of these political embarrassments, subscribe, because Kristi Noem won't be the last one to be made fun of. You won't want to miss who's next.
South Park has been getting record ratings. They got 6 million cross-platform viewers for the premiere episode. It's the highest share, in fact, in 25 years.
This is the moment where everything backfired for Kristi Noem. She thought that by dismissing the show and labeling it as lazy, she could take away some of its momentum and convince people it wasn't worth their time. In her mind, a sharp insult would make the buzz fade and slow down the conversation around the episode. But the exact opposite happened. Instead of shrinking the attention, her comments supercharged it, drawing even more eyes to what she was so desperate to discredit. The numbers speak for themselves. The episode pulled in more than 6 million viewers, a massive audience by any standard. And it didn't stop there. Very quickly, it rose through the rankings and claimed the spot as the most streamed show in the entire country. That kind of reach doesn't happen by accident. It was a cultural explosion. What she intended as an insult turned into a megaphone that amplified the show's popularity. This wasn't just another successful airing for South Park. It was the kind of moment that makes television history.
South Park is setting new records nearly 3 decades after its debut. Comedy Central says last week's episode, which took aim at Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, was the show's highest rated since 2018. It scored the biggest audience share in series history.
While Kristi Noem was fuming over being portrayed in a cartoon, Trey Parker and Matt Stone were experiencing one of their biggest wins in years. Her outrage didn't slow them down. It did the exact opposite. By reacting so strongly, she gave the show free advertising that money couldn't buy. Every headline that covered her frustration, every interview where she expressed her anger, every explanation about why she thought it was unfair only ended up shining a brighter spotlight on the episode itself. People who might not have even planned to watch it suddenly became curious, and curiosity led to more views, more conversations, and more attention for South Park. Instead of damaging the show's reputation, her response fueled its popularity, turning the episode into an even bigger cultural moment. In the end, what was meant to be an attack or at least a criticism ended up serving as the best promotion the creators could have hoped for. She didn't weaken South Park, she strengthened it, and her frustration became the very reason for its renewed success.
Feels like once these guys kind of landed their contract and they felt safe enough to not be sued, they're saying whatever they want.
Here's the reality from the business angle. Paramount has officially joined forces with Skydance, bringing the two companies under one roof. In the middle of all the deals, the payouts, and the restructuring, there was still a question about South Park and its future. Even after shelling out a massive $16 million because of issues tied to Trump's FCC, the show didn't get canceled, suspended, or even threatened. Instead, it stayed right where it was, running strong, and the reason behind that decision is actually very straightforward. It makes too much money to let go. When something is that profitable, it becomes untouchable, no matter how many complaints or fines come its way. David Ellison, now sitting at the top as the new head, personally stepped in to make sure South Park was safe. His defense was simple but effective. The show doesn't target one side, it targets everyone. That's the core of its appeal, the very thing that keeps viewers tuning in and keeps the profits rolling. The controversy isn't a problem for the business, it's the product. And as long as South Park continues to stir people up, it will continue to earn, which means it will continue to air. And if you think that's already pretty entertaining, just wait until you hear the next part. It only gets funnier.
At first, Noem was in on the joke. She and ICE used the show as a recruitment push on social media, but it was fun until it wasn't.
Not too long ago, the Department of Homeland Security came up with what they thought was a clever idea. They decided to take South Park memes, the kind of edgy humor the show is famous for, and use them as a tool to look cool and appealing. Their goal was simple. By borrowing the cartoon's shocking and controversial style, they hoped to draw in younger people and convince them to sign up for ICE. The thinking was that if they spoke the language of internet culture, they could win over a new generation, but what ended up happening was something completely different. Over time, South Park didn't play along with the image the department was trying to build. Instead, the show flipped the script and started turning its humor against those very leaders, making them the target of ridicule again and again. And in doing so, South Park took what the department had tried to spin for recruitment and transformed it into the exact opposite, an ongoing joke that spread online. Rather than promoting ICE, the cartoon managed to make the agency itself into a meme, one that people share, not because they admire it, but because they're laughing at it. The irony of this shift is almost too perfect, the kind of twist no scriptwriter could plan out any better.
It's one of the more staggering stories I've ever seen a politician put in a book, thinking this would actually make them look strong.
Here's the point that really matters. What South Park managed to do wasn't simply about throwing a few jokes at Kristi Noem. It was about peeling back the mask she had carefully crafted for herself. She spent years shaping the idea that she was a tough leader, someone who could command respect and maintain control. Yet in just one added scene, all of that careful work unraveled right in front of everyone, and suddenly her image wasn't powerful anymore. It was funny. That's the unique force humor has when it's used as criticism. It doesn't challenge you head on. It doesn't get into an argument with you. It turns you into the punchline. And when you've become the subject of laughter, when people stop seeing authority and start seeing a joke, the damage is something you can't undo, because humiliation doesn't fade the way debate or disagreement does. It sticks. And once people laugh at you, it's nearly impossible to ever be taken seriously again.
And has reached such new lows that she actually put that in about the killing of a happy puppy because she thought it would help her with the base.
Let's be honest, you can bend the rules, twist the words, or spin the story any way you like, but none of that will stop people from laughing when they think something is funny. Noem getting frustrated didn't make the joke fall flat. It actually did the opposite. His reaction proved that the joke hit exactly where it was supposed to. That's the thing about South Park. They don't just take shots at people in power. They strip away the seriousness and make the very idea of authority something that can be laughed at. That's why time after time they end up on top. They don't just mock the leaders. They mock the idea that leaders are untouchable. And that brings us to the bigger question. If a single extra scene was enough to completely undo Kristi Noem's confident appearance, then what happens the next time South Park decides to aim their humor at her again? If one moment of comedy rattled her image, how will she hold up when the spotlight shines on her once more in their world of relentless satire? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think.